I'm Laura, and welcome back to the Tarot Genie, where you receive intuitive answers from the tarot to your burning questions about business, career, creativity, entrepreneurship, personal development, politics, and more. For this upcoming week's reading, week of April 27th, I thought the question I would ask as far as what to expect or what to do to really, in the midst of this very challenging time, is how can we really express our passion? How can we radiate passion in everything we do, even in the midst of the constraints that we are facing and dealing with at the moment, as far as being quarantined in our homes, etc. And what prompted this topic is that there was an article in this weekend's Washington Post about, it was a book article about a new book about the Mexican artist Frida Kahlo. And Frida Kahlo is one of my favorite women in history because something about her really fascinates me. Ever since the movie came out back in, I think, 2002 or so, 2003, with Salma Hayek, who played Frida Kahlo. And ever since then, I did see a wonderful exhibit at the Philadelphia Museum of Art back then, Frida Kahlo exhibit. But she lived, the reason she draws me in is that she did create a lot of very strange artwork. Some is quite creepy, some is can be considered disturbing. But she had such a challenging life. She had polio as a child, and then she had a horrific tram accident when she was about 18, which caused her to experience pain throughout her entire life. But despite that, she exuded tremendous passion. And that's why the significator card I chose for Frida Kahlo is the World card, because this shows a woman who is kind of free-spirited and is embracing life with everything she's got. Frida Kahlo definitely did that. I won't say that I would emulate her lifestyle in some of her eccentric ways of being and unconventional ways of being, but what I do admire about her is that she just infused her life with so much passion. So much so that last year, Halloween, my neighbor's Halloween party, I dressed up as Frida Kahlo, just because I enjoy her so much. So let's get started with this reading. What can we expect this week, and how can we infuse passion in the midst of this challenging time? How can we infuse passion in the midst of this challenging time? All right, so mentally, how can we infuse passion? Now, this is not what I would expect, how to infuse passion, because we have here the Seven of Coins or the Seven of Pentacles. It's someone who is pausing and reflecting. But perhaps this does make sense, because it's saying, especially at this challenging time, we're all pausing. Because we're in quarantine, most of us, it gives us the opportunity to reflect and to look at our lives, to look at what we've done up until this point. So in this coming week or so, if we really want to infuse more passion, and not just this coming week, in the next period of time, just in our life in general, to infuse more passion, we need to take some time to pause and reflect on where we've come so far, and perhaps where we need to put our energy next. That's what this farmer who's pausing, he has achieved a certain amount, but he's taking time to sit back and reflect on his activities to this point, or the fruits of his labor, which appears to be there, represented by the coins, by the pentacles. So take time. Mentally, this is saying, in the midst of this quarantine for many of us, take time to step back and reflect on where we get our joy, what really drives us, what we need to discard, what we need to embrace. The next card, physically, what can we do to infuse more passion in our lives? This is the Seven of Cups. Now, the Seven of Cups is often related to, sometimes in a particular reading, it can relate to being in a sense of fantasy, fantasizing about a variety of options. Physically, I would say, in terms of this coming week and the coming months, to infuse more passion. Well, actually, it's interesting. We have two sevens here. So it's looking at, this is assessing where you've been, and this is saying, maybe physically in a way, where do you need to put your energies, your feelings in the physical realm, in the physical world? Where do you need to go to move in the midst of, granted, our limitations at the moment, although things are being lifted in some states. Whether that's a good idea is another topic, but I believe this is consistent with what we just said, discovered in the Seven of Coins, is that just to take a look and think through our different options and where, what would make us feel good in terms of, especially physically, in the physical realm, what would be positive, so that we could just express that passion. Although what also comes to mind whenever I see this Seven of Cups is that one option always leaps out beyond the others. I mean, we've got someone who is contemplating and perhaps overinvested in, maybe their jewels, there's a castle, there's a beautiful head. But this particular shrouded figure almost looks like a little ghost. It's electrifying. It's flashing out saying, choose the option that most animates your spirit. That's what's coming to my mind as I look at that. Choose the option that most animates your spirit in the physical realm. And then finally, spiritually, what can we expect, or what do we need to do to be able to express and radiate more passion in our lives as the week unfolds? And this is one of my least favorite cards when it's upright. I think I've mentioned this before in a number of readings for people that I've done. When this card pops up, especially when it's in readings about relationships or readings about the dynamics of certain individuals, it often represents someone who is deceptive, someone who's trying to get away with something, is lying, etc. Given that this is reversed, it's suggesting to me that from a spiritual perspective, to radiate and to express more passion in your life, you need to actually dispel any delusions that you may have in your life. Anything maybe there've been some negative philosophies that you've held, and it's time to let those go. Because I often see this as the swords represent communications and beliefs, etc. So it could also mean that you need just to let go of anything that has hampered you, that has not been true to your own self. Is there anything that you've been kind of going along with that really doesn't represent who you are, that just belies your actual persona, who you really are? It's time to let go of that. That's what I would say would be the overall significance of, how can we emulate Frida Kahlo? And we need to take time to reflect what's most important to us. And she had so many challenges, but she just embraced life. She really focused on what was important to her. And then physically, in physical or in the material realm, focus on, what kind of animates you the most. Be drawn to that, rather than illusion of, things look pretty or things, but what drives, what you feel energetically most drawn to, energetically. And finally, just to dispel of, let go of anything that you've been doing that maybe hasn't been true to your own self. Anyway, maybe you've been involved in some activities that you really didn't want to, but you just went along to please other people. Let those things go, so that you have more energy freed up for your true passions. Now, this week's music selection is going to be a short track from the soundtrack of that movie, Frida, with Salma Hayek. I love this particular track because it reminds me of my Mexican roots. I'm half Mexican, and I lived in Mexico till I was about 4.5 years old, and somehow it just brings that memory back of that time. And then finally, as far as the book recommendation, there's a book that came out, I think the early 2000s. It's called Forever Frida, Celebration of the Life, Art, Lovers, Words, and Style of Frida Kahlo, and that's by Cano Murillo. And then there's also a new book, which is what I came across, a book review, called The Heart, and it's Frida Kahlo in Paris, and that's written by Marc, Petitjean, and it's a new book written about her time and an affair she had when she spent several months in Paris. So those two books are good points if you want to learn more about her passionate life. And so just remember, until next time, illumine your mind, inspire your life with the tarot.